Their Neptune at 22 degrees, well, that was an eclipse point, and that would be the government and the institutions and the departments within the government that kind of disappeared. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is G. You're watching Allastrology, and this is the week of April 14th. The following 7 days, let's take a look at this. We have quite a few planets making moves. I anticipate this week there should be some major shifts this week in the energy because planets are making moves. So, with that said, we'll start off right at the beginning of the week. We have Juno. Juno's in Saggy and has been in Saggy for the last few months. I think it's been causing problems and concerns. It's always in the news. It's Saggy. So it's beliefs, the justice system, courtroom, sagas. Supreme Court decisions, opinions, justice in general, the scales of justice. Is there justice? Beliefs, spirituality, religion. My thoughts and my beliefs about my future and my freedoms. Saggy. It's a seeker of wisdom and knowledge. And it usually does it by exploring, literally by whether it's traveling in some way. It wants to seek, it wants to search out, actively seek and search out. So with Juno, you can see it right there at the beginning of the week. Well, this is the last day that this is going to be here because it's retrograding, which means it's going to go backwards. However, in a retrograde is usually when the Supreme Court will make an announcement of some sort, meaning they'll take a case and hear it, or they won't. I don't know how they do it. I don't know if they respond and say we're not taking it, or there's just an official, they passed it over. Now, Scorpio is change and transformation. So whatever's been going on with Juno and partnerships and Scorpio going, Juno going to Scorpio, the partnerships, we think about history, trauma, tragedies, people who have fought for a very long time, wars and conflicts and dislocations and turf really, because this is Scorpio energy, which is the natural resources of the planet. And when you're when you're talking about land and turf, like some of these wars, just the fighting never ends. People who live there, Holy Land, people are like, what the hell? This is worth dying for. So whether it's that or partnerships where we have shared financial interests, it could be blood bonds, insurance money, right? So there's a lot of intense energy that starts back up again in partnerships because Juno going back into Scorpio will be there for the entire week. Okay, so keep that in mind. Scorpio, 29 degrees, happens on Tuesday, the very next day. We're going to go next to Mercury. Mercury makes a move this week, and this happens, I think it's on this 15th/16th. Mercury makes a move into Aries. Well, with a move into Aries energy, Neptune's sitting right there. You see that? So here we go. Mercury's at 28 to begin off the week, 28, 29. A critical degree is how Mercury starts the week in Pisces energy. Confusion with our thoughts and our minds. We understand the politics and the stories in the United States, and it's okay. It's not being, when we have so much energy in Pisces, I think stories is a really good, accurate word for Mercury in Pisces because Pisces is theater. It is costumes. It is the stage and screen. It's creative energy. It's very mutable. It can change its mind with the wind. That's Pisces energy. And it will go with the flow. It will pay attention. It will throw out there something extreme. I'm talking about politics, politicians. Statesmen, heads of state, presidents, right? Who will say certain things and might be doing it for whatever reason, their idea of how do you control making a deal, I don't know, don't want to know. However, this is energy that you kind of take with a grain of salt, even though it's been very, very dramatic. Jupiter rules Pisces with Neptune. And now that Neptune is in Aries, it really changes. It changes the Pisces energy, how the global powers, right? Changing partnerships, global powers having to make major adjustments because the US has declared major changes. And Neptune in Aries, Aries is very much about assertiveness, fighting, impatience, anger. I'm praying that having Neptune, which is understanding and peace, I'm praying that Neptune being here will be like, hey, you need to surrender and just chill. Now, I'm not talking about Ukraine. I understand people have strong opinions on it, but if you were living there and you were invaded, you would defend to the end. So, with that said, I'm hoping there is some sort of a equitable treaty, something that both sides are like, okay, fine, you know, and that Ukraine is left sovereign as it should be. Pisces and the strength of Neptune. Neptune is definitely more about surrender and peace. However, the flip side of this, this can be spiritual action, right? We talked about this a little bit in the last week's video. I gave some other examples as well, but no doubt the other countries recognizing the United States can no longer be the police force. And even if they turn around and are like, oh, yeah, well, now we got to change our mind about this. I got to believe that these countries, that this Neptune in Aries is them unifying, because that is exactly what Neptune represents. It unifies. Yep, Neptune says we are all one. Well, it's in Aries. So we could see how it makes sense where the other global leaders are like, we must unify because we're on our own and we kind of got to take care of this side of the world. Mercury getting there on Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, Mercury at 28, 29, and then like Tuesday, Wednesday, it goes into here. So Monday, Tuesday is a big day because it's already an out of bounds, or I'm sorry, it's already an extreme day at 28 and 29. So first, the public at 28, 29 is extreme. Usually wealthy people are, and or people of extreme power. And it's in Pisces. So we might hear more things about Hollywood and musicians, actors, actresses, because this is performance energy, performers, and the show must go on type of energy. Mercury doesn't do real well as far as thinking and being analytical. It's more about sound and music and paints and feelings and sensitivities and kumbaya and prayer and meditation in Pisces. However, that will change, right? It'll get into Neptune. It'll be conjunct Neptune in Aries. So it's very different now. Definitely stuff in the news, and it'll be big stuff. It'll be stuff we're all probably going to be paying attention to because it's global stuff, right? It's going to be at the 0 degrees on the world axis point. And when the global leaders meet, we pay attention because we're like, what the hell's going on? The dynamic, the old order is totally gone and away. We'll see what happens. We'll see how that turns out. Venus and Saturn and the North Node, as you see here, well, they're spot on together this entire week. And not only that, but the North Node makes a move this week, and that's a big deal. 26 degrees is the money degree. That's the Taurus degree. Venus and Saturn and the North Node will be together this entire week. Shared values and definitely natural resources. So the United States and all its tariff screaming and this and that and the other, they might come to realize that those things are probably going to do them more harm because, quite frankly, the United States brings in a lot of products in order for them to do business and order for them to survive and to eat and to have electricity and power and have products. So we'll see what happens, but shared natural resources really comes into um, a strong role here this week because of the fact that the partnerships in Juno and Scorpio will be present, right? And we're going to go to Mars, right? Everyone's sick of hearing about Mars, I'm sure, but Mars is making a move. At the beginning of this week, Mars is sitting at 28 degrees. It doesn't stay there long. It's already been there long enough. It's going to click over to 29. And then this week, it makes a move to 0 degrees of Leo. So that's going to change things. The emotions, because that's the Cancer energy. Mars going into Leo will be way more optimistic. But before we get there, we have to survive 28 and 29 degrees of Cancer. Emotions can swing high and low, okay? Because it's emotions. It's family, it's women, it's feelings. Mars is extreme at 29. I will even say at 28 because of because we're dealing with emotions. So Mars is usually a soldier, angry, impatient, quite juvenile. Weapons, quite juvenile. There's something about the damn weapons. Its whole existence surrounds the goddamn weapons. Yeah. So the Mars energy and the intensity of the sporadic bursts of energy that can be surprising or catch somebody unaware at 28 and 29, that is this week. Hopefully this Mars will be more outdoorsy and go jog or get in a ring and go boxing, go boxing, do some kickboxing, do something that it can get all that frustration and anger out, but in a healthy way. And Mars sits at the critical degree, 29 degrees, all the way until Thursday. Just remember, Mars is intense, whether it's out of bounds or not. 28 and 29 is intense, and it adds to the emotional instability, home, family, feelings, nurturing the past and history. Okay, so keep those things in mind. This would create a T-square to Libra energy at 28 and 29, Libra at 28 and 29, you're going to feel Mars squaring. This is your relationships, okay? Significant one-on-one relationships, partnerships, but also marriage, business and marriage, both for some folks. And then the opposite is Aries, 28 and 29. That's where Mars is creating a T-square. Now, I want you to look closely at this chart. What do you see at 28? This right here is Isis at 28 degrees. So the beginning of this week, the first 5 days, I think, are intense. There's a lot happening because this Isis at 28, she doesn't stay here. She also makes a move this week. Yeah, Isis is going to make a move. Matter of fact, Isis and the sun, we'll just talk about it right now because we're here. The sun is already conjunct Isis and they're at 0 degrees of Taurus. You see? So there's the past is involved in this. There's an authority figure, wounds of the past. Isis is there creating something new because it's Isis. It'll be in Taurus. So it's a rearrangement of our values, making an arrangement of our values. And remember, the Isis energy is very old. So it's ancient civilizations, it's Egyptian. An additional thing that intensifies this week, the 18th to the 19th, Mars at the critical degree, then Mars moves to Leo. Well, Taurus and Leo are fixed signs. So what you see here then is you see the red line I have drawn in, and this is the red line from Isis and the sun, an authority figure, squaring Mars in Leo energy. Okay. Now remember, Mars is just a soldier. It is not an authority figure. It is young. It is the soldier. It takes orders and it's a square. So there's some sort of complicated energy because you're going to have Isis and Taurus sitting in the Isis and the sun sitting in Taurus at 0 degrees, which is intense, values money and banking, right? And it squares the Mars energy of taking action. And Mars, can be an authority figure only in the fact that that it's the sun, because the sun rules Leo energy. So even though Mars has to receive orders from its boss, this Mars in particular will walk in and kind of act like it's the boss. I was given the authority to do this, and then being challenged by actual authority figures, by real authority figures. You follow? This is stress and tension when you see a square. Leo energy at 1 degrees definitely is more Martian energy, possibly soldiers, but taking orders, giving orders, a lot of taking action energy. And when you have the taking action energy in Leo, there's something about the flair and the dramatics again. Pisces, the flair and dramatics, and then Leo, flair, dramatics. I'm having fun with this. This is politicians as well. Some people acting as though what's going on is fun. It's just a show, and it's kind of a sad state of affairs, to be honest, because these are people's lives. These are people's lives. It is not a goddamn board game. It is not. Saturn is order and structure. It's organizing. It walks into a location and it compartmentalizes. It's the boss that shows up and says, okay, I know where you belong. I see your weakness. I see your strength. Go over there. You should be doing that. Go over there. You should be doing that. And let's get this organized. So they're setting up rules and regulations and organizing. Okay. And it's within the government and the structure. We know this already. But for you in your life, what's going on, right? Pisces is about that spiritual ethereal realm. It is about that other side, the 3D, where sometimes we have to really slow ourselves down, like really slow ourselves down to even be aware that there is this other reality. And some don't call it reality. Some consider the Pisces energy strictly fantasy and made up and make believe. And while those are keywords for it, if you've ever painted or created music or even listened to music or watched a movie, you've touched in with it then. Sure, prayer and faith and belief, it's all of that too, and intuitions and getting messages, and it's all part of the Pisces. But it's the 5D realm, right? It's no longer, or I'm saying it's no longer, it is not the material and the tangible. And what makes this tricky is Saturn is the material and the tangible. It you know, it can be a little wishy-washy and change its mind and be confused, or things are looking really fuzzy and we didn't really look and see the details, because you can't see the details with Pisces or Neptune energy for that matter, because Neptune rules it. Jupiter has a hard time with the details because Jupiter is a ruler, ancient ruler of Pisces. So whenever we make plans for the future, whenever we have a dream, right? Whenever we have a story or a fantasy, it sounds so big and beautiful and idealistic and fantastical. But then when you got to sit your butt down and actually do the work, Saturn, when you have to actually start listing the things out, and then you have to start implementing and taking action, it looks very different. It is very different. It's nothing like you thought it was going to be, because on paper, it made sense. But once you get in there and you're knee deep in it and you're like, who the hell thought this was a good idea? You guys know what I'm talking about. You've been there. You've had it happen at your job. We all have. It sounds good on paper, but in reality, when it comes time to actually take charge and implement it, that's the Virgo stuff. The details, the details, the details. Remember, the United States, I've been looking at different charts for them because I don't know what chart to go by with their charts anymore. But I will say that one of the charts I'm looking at, their Neptune at 22 degrees, well, that was an eclipse point, and that would be the government and the institutions and the departments within the government that kind of disappeared because there was a housekeeping going on. There was a sweep. There was a cleaning going on, right? There was, we got to clean this up because there's too much waste. But again, Virgo stuff, you are a fool to get rid of the Virgo stuff. The Virgo is the details. It's there for a reason. It's there for a reason. So with that said, I feel strongly again about wait until Venus is in Aries past 10 degrees and wait until Mercury is past the 9 degrees, because that is where they both began their retrograde. And so heads up, not really heads up, maybe a sums up for the following Monday. It's going to be a lot of the same energy, but a little bit different because we will discuss spicy Mars with spicy Pandora's box at 0 degrees. In general, be aware to the fixed signs as well. I had an alert for the cardinal signs for Libra and Aries at 28 and 29, but also for the Taurus and for the Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius energy. Aquarius, because they're all fixed signs. So that's from 0 to 2, 3 degrees, definitely. Because remember, we got Pluto in Aquarius sitting at 343. So intense power and changes on a global scale. And we will talk about this. This is the main story for next week, because then, of course, the sun is squaring Pluto, and so is Mars. And so is, I mean, there's a lot. They're all in this huge T-square. So we'll get into it then. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you for watching. Remember, I always, always, always appreciate your time. You take care.